Hello, welcome to THE Journal Insider Podcast. This is Crystal Kirkendall, I'm editor at THE Journal. I'm here today with Dan Mance. He is the CEO of the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. I've spoken with you before, and I know a little bit about the REC Foundation, and I know you guys host robotics competitions for nearly every grade level all over the country. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thanks for having me back, Crystal.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm so
Yeah,
glad that we could do this. So, Little Bird told me that you guys have updated your mission and that you guys have some cool new stuff in the works besides the robotics programs that are just growing every year and getting kids excited about technology and building things and learning STEM, all kinds of STEM lessons. And so I want to hear about your updated mission and vision and tell me about that.
absolutely. Well, we're so excited to be here and share our programs. And like you said, we have programs from K through university. We're in all 50 United States, and we're in 70 countries, over 70 countries total. And all our programs really continue to grow. We're larger now than we've ever been at any point in our history. So it's been a remarkable journey, especially through the last few years. As part of that journey, we wanted to step back and make sure that our mission and vision still reflected of what we're trying to do for the community. And so the tweaks we made to both are subtle, but they do better reflect of who we are and what we're doing. So our new mission is the REC Foundation global mission is to provide every educator with competition education and workforce readiness programs to increase student engagement in STEM and computer science. So the tweak of that is, first of all, is the addition of the word global. When we first did our mission, 12 years ago, we were just U.S. focused, and we started adding direct responsibility for international programs about 5 years ago. So international teams have always competed in VEX Robotics, but now the REC Foundation runs all the international programs too. One of the other focuses was to make sure that the educator was mentioned in our mission, because at the end of the day, we rely on our educators, whether it's our after school competitions, in school curriculums. It's the educators that really need these tools to prepare our students for both STEM careers, computer science careers, and workforce readiness. So, 10 years ago, the focus was on STEM, right? And STEM is still important. But with the evolving of technology and the gig economy and everything else, there are many, many students in our program that aren't going to get a traditional 4 year STEM degree, but our programs are still preparing them for the tech jobs. So that was, again, a tweak to the mission. It's not an overall redo, but I think it better reflects what our focus is. For
Right.
our vision is actually pretty new. We only came out with a vision 5 years ago, and we tweaked that too to say we see a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. So the tweak there is, experiences failure, we changed to overcome failure. We had a lot of discussion about that word in particular, but it is part of our process, is the design process. And as part of the design process in the workforce is sometimes you do experience failure, but we don't want our students just to experience it. We also want them to overcome it. And again, we want the challenges that they're facing to be global challenges. So it reflects the world where we're all interconnected, and the problems we face here in the United States are problems that we're facing everywhere. And we're a global community. Our community speaks the language of robotics, and we wanted to make sure that our vision reflects that. So very excited about, we announced it to the entire community just 2 days ago, actually. We think it reflects who we are. We think it shows that global focus, and now it's to make sure that we reach as many educators and many students as possible.
Awesome. And so I know, going back to the word failures, I know when we spoke before and you gave me a really good in-depth look at the robotics competitions and the programs, one of the things that you emphasized and that I also have heard from educators is letting the kids fail. Like, instead of you guys like showing them exactly how to do stuff, or the teachers showing them exactly how to do, they learn the concepts and then they get to play with it. They get to put a robot together, whatever they're working on. And if it doesn't work, then they get to back up and figure it out. And I do think I can see the importance of that. And it's interesting that aren't you guys are not shying away from that word, which I think uh, can be scary to use, I guess, in a vision statement. I'm sure. And so, tell me a little bit about that process, about your discussion around that.
Well, Crystal, I'm so glad you asked about that because I think one thing that makes the REC Foundation, VEX Robotics, and drones programs unique is we're a year round program. So our season starts at the conclusion of our VEX Robotics World Championship. We announce next year's games. And as part of that process, traditionally, probably most students don't get started until they return, but we have students that participate year round. And we are a very student centered program. So we inspire our students, we encourage our students, but we also want our students to be hands on. It's also why we still use a physical robot. We haven't gone completely virtual. So for us, it all comes back to the design process. And when we announce that year's game, that challenge is the students to get together to brainstorm, understand the game, understand how they're going to score, and then start designing and building. And as part of the process, nobody makes the perfect robot the first time out. I come from robotics industry, and developing a new robot was a multi-year process. And once we hit the market, we still made improvements, right? So the iterative design process is key. So as part of that is you're going to experience and overcome failures sometimes. You're going to put a robot on the field and it's not going to work how you expected it to. And we don't want the students to get discouraged. We want the students to understand, to go back to their engineering design notebooks, document what went right, what went wrong, and how they're going to make improvements. So it's a year round cycle, it's a process. And what's really important about the REC Foundation process is yes, a lot of our students go into engineering or mathematics, but no matter what job you get, whether you go into banking or you go into marketing, this process of problem solving and iterative translates to any type of job careers. So that's
Right.
fundamentally who we are. And you become out a stronger person when you go through these trials.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm the poster child for that one. I'm sure we've all learned from our
Well,
mistakes.
I joke with the community. I joke with my yeah. I joke with my community and with my staff that nobody experiences and overcomes failures more than I do. So I think just the nature of having to make so many decisions, I make a lot more mistakes than your average person too.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's important, the more mistakes we make and learn from, the smarter we are, right? So, in that
Yeah,
way, I say I'm a genius, and you probably are too. So, all right. So, let's talk about this the VEX Robotics program and how that is, woven throughout the REC Foundation and everything that you guys work toward.
absolutely. So as we touched on earlier, VEX Robotics is K through 12. They also have university. So we run competitions, starting in early elementary school all the way through university. So the REC Foundation, frankly, is best known for our VEX Robotics competitions. And our two largest competitions are the VEX IQ competition and then the VEX Robotics competition. The VEX IQ is for mid, late elementary and middle school. The VRC program starts in middle school through high school. And in both of those programs, we'll have over 15,000 teams each, so 30,000 teams early are and combined competing across the globe this year. So those are our two largest programs. In all cases, the students design and build robots, and then they compete. How they compete is different from program to program. At the REC Foundation, you compete with other teams and or against other teams, but you also have what we call our skills challenges. One of the skill challenges is 100% autonomous. So students program their robots, and that's the robot on the field by themselves. And then we have a driver skill challenge in all of our programs, and that's the students driving their robot. So you have the aspect of competing with and against other teams, which really works on your workforce skills, your communication, your problem solving. But if you really want to know how your robot does individually, you have those individual skills. So new to the REC Foundation is our VEX Go competition, which is very early elementary. The intent of that isn't to have these big competitions all over the state, all over the region, all over the world, but those tend to be classroom or school focused. Again, that's the students by themselves trying to overcome tasks, learning engineering, design fundamentals, and doing that. And then at the high end, we have our VEX U program, which is for university students. That's 3D printed parts, advanced machining, and new to our ecosystem is our VEX AI competition. So our VEX AI competition is a competition where the students don't drive the robot. It's 100% autonomous. We include high-end cameras, GPS sensors, and peer-to-peer communications between the robots. So the students are A, still developing the mechanical robot, but B, they're writing advanced software to recognize what their opponents are doing, recognize where the field and game elements are, and to make AI type decisions to do scoring. So from the very beginning of the VEX 123 program through VEX Go competitions all the way to our advanced university and AI competitions, we really, through our VEX programs, hit the entire market.
That's and so approximately how many total K-12 students do you have a running count for how many have participated all time?
Yeah, so last year we had in all of our programs combined, we had over 1 million students, and our VEX IQ and our VEX VRC programs, we had over 350,000 students competing in just those two programs last year.
Wow, and about how that's a ton of kids, that's amazing. How many of those are in the United States in K-12?
So last year, because of coming out of the global pandemic, the U.S. percentage was a little bit higher. So last year, about 90% of our students were from the United States. Traditionally, it's 75 to 80%, and I fully expect in our 2022-2023 season we'll be back to that same ratio. We're adding new countries almost every single day. Matter of fact, yesterday the Cook Islands registered a team, right? So never had a team in the Cook Islands before.
And so, one of the you mentioned all of these awesome technologies these kids are working on, and in my mind, I'm sure, and in some of our listeners' minds, there's just dollar signs racking up. It sounds like a lot of expensive stuff. So let's revisit. You told me about this previously, but I want to share for our podcast listeners how it works when a school wants to get involved with robotics and they don't have the funds to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Let's talk about how the foundation enables those grants and things and makes that feasible for districts that don't have the budget to buy a bunch of robotics equipment.
Crystal, that's just such a great question. And one of the things the REC Foundation programs strive to be is affordable and sustainable and accessible, right? So we're very, very fortunate to have a lot of good sponsors. Our presenting sponsors, the Northrop Grumman Foundation, but Tesla, Google, Texas Instruments, NASA, they're all huge contributors to our programs. And they give us grant money, which in turn allows us to give grants to teams. We also have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Our Girl Powered program is probably our most well known program, where the intent of Girl Powered was to redefine the face of STEM and bring more women into our organization. And through the generosity, particularly of Google and Texas Instruments, so we've given out thousands of Girl Powered grants to the point now that 43% of the teams in our ecosystem are Girl Powered teams, meaning there's as many girls as boys on the team. And in the elementary schools, half the students in our programs are girls. So for all these programs, you can apply for a grant. And there's a couple different ways to do it. If you go to roboticseducation.org, our main website, and then you type in grants, it'll redirect you to the links to apply for grants. In the REC Foundation, we also have support across the US and across the globe. So we have team engagement managers for every state in the United States. We have regional support managers internationally. And you go to robot events or roboticseducation.org and ask for support. It'll bring up a map, and then you click on your state or your country, and it'll give you your contact. So you can reach out to them. But we're very, very fortunate that our sponsors provide money to help these teams. And that's our goal. I mean, we have a goal shared with Google that we would like to see every high school, every elementary school, every middle school have a robotics team by 2030. And so we're focused to do that. And at the end of the day, one thing about our program is the parts are reusable. So you're not building a robot from scratch with custom parts every year. So you are building a new robot every year, but we reuse the motors, the metal, the robot brain. So what we do is we change the challenge every year. So you have different game elements, a different field setup, but the robot itself can be used. So once you purchase that robot, you can continue to participate in our programs for years to come.
And so, about how long does the process take? So, if educators are listening to this and they go, oh, we need to apply for this grant. I wonder if it's too late for the next round of competitions. Let's tell me about the timeline and what all is involved for educators when they are applying. Like, how complicated is it? That sort of
Okay.
thing.
Yeah. So I'll answer the question two different ways. If you're applying for a grant, if you apply right now, as fortunate as we've been with our sponsor funding, we're almost out of grants for this current season, right? But still apply, and the REC Foundation will reach out to you. We'll tell you about our programs that don't need a robot for this year, and we'll get you into the system. So as soon as a product becomes available, we can get you a robot and get you started for next season. As far as if you already have equipment, what's the timing of the season? We announce our new game in May. Some clubs, some schools. Remember, we're a global program, so when we announce our game, there's students in Australia and Singapore and other countries that are in school. But usually, U.S. teams return to the classroom in August, September, and some of our programs are in class, some are extracurricular. But they get started, typically August, September, and they'll start competing in October, November, and then in December, January, and February are our three highest competition months. In March, we start having our state, regional, and national championships. So that's pretty much what March is. And that culminates in qualifying for VEX Robotics World Championship, where 3,000 of the best teams from across the world compete. This year, VEX Worlds will start in April in Dallas, Texas, and we anticipate 3,000 teams from over 50 countries will compete. So the season gets started right at the game unveil, but the competitions really get going in November, December. And remember, in our program, you don't need to travel to go compete. We have our live remote tournament technology, and so we have live remote skills where you're still competing with and against other teams, but you're doing it remotely. We have online challenges. We have other classroom activities. We want students to experience competition, in-person competition. That is a great way to really work on your skills and see what other teams' robots look like, and it really helps with your communication and problem-solving skills. But we also want to continue to make sure our program's affordable. That's why we have things like our online challenges and our live remote skills, where you never even need to leave where you have your team practices.
Right. Okay. And so I understand that you guys have a drone program now. That is really awesome. Tell me about the aerial drone competition and Bell Advanced Vertical Robotics competition.
Well, Crystal, thank you so much for asking, because a few years ago, as great and as fast as our robotics competitions are growing, as the VEX Robotics is an incredible partner. They put out great products. Neither organization felt that we were really reaching all the students that we could. So the REC Foundation are like, how can we reach more students? And everybody's talking about drones. Drones have been used for decades. They were used in agriculture. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, so they're used in agriculture. Here in Texas, they're used to inspect oil wells. I think most of the community knows that all the big distribution companies have plans to use drones to deliver packages. So we knew drones as an emerging technology. So the REC Foundation says, how can we reach a different group of students so that they're interested in technology and STEM and workforce development programs? So we started with a small drones program 4 years ago, and it's really, really grown. So our aerial drones competition is our introductory drones program, and it's a smaller drone. It can be flown indoors. Netting is not required. Many schools still choose to put up netting, but the class of drone that it is, it's not required. And we have two primary challenges with that drone. So one of it is an autonomous challenge where you program the drone to do tasks, and then the other one is just the flying of the drone and competing against other schools, other teams. That one is not just drones racing, though. We actually give you tasks such as moving cargo, landing in a certain zone for points, etc. So that's our aerial drones competition. And we expect to have 1,500 to 2,000 teams this year. It's growing very, very quickly. We're very fortunate that the U.S. government and NASA and other organizations really support this program. And then we have our Bell Advanced Vertical Robotics competition, and that's the premium drones program there is on the market. And that one is a much larger custom drone that the students build. There's soldering, there's electrical, and that one is a 7-minute challenge that's quite a bit complex, where you're using autonomous modes, you're using hands off, you're using sensors, and you're trying to detect the challenges. So this year it's a fire challenge. So the drones go up in the air, they detect hot spots. And then in this game, there are other robot operators that drive ground vehicles or fly a smaller drones that will go put out the fires, for example. So this is a lot more custom building, a lot more programming, and a lot more engineering. And so that program, this is our second year presenting this program with Bell, and we're super excited about it. We've grown from just being in Texas to being in Maryland and Michigan this year. And it's really the pinnacle of any drone competition out there. I think if you go to our website, roboticseducation.org, and you Google, you type in drones, you'll see videos of both of the programs. But I think just to step back on why we did it, the best thing happened at VEX Worlds this year. So at VEX Worlds, we had our first national drones competition for the aerial drones competition. And there was a lot of students there that got into the drones because it was fun to fly them. And when I would talk to the students or I'd talk to the coaches, they're like, hey, we really just wanted to fly the drone, but we wanted our drone to be faster. We wanted it to maneuver better. So we started tweaking it a little bit. We started programming the drone. And now all these students are now doing programming and building and playing with sensors that weren't going to do it before. So it was kind of a fun path to get into technology. And it really, really is working. And I think drones will continue to grow at a very, very fast rate. And there's other drones programs out there, but we think we have the nice mix of fun, the flying part, with the STEM, the engineering, and the design part too.
Right. And paint a picture for me with words here for the people listening on the podcast about how small or large are these drones in these different programs.
Oh, that's a great question. So our smaller drones for the aerial drones competition, they can fit in your hand, right? So if you put out your hand, and you can actually hold that drone. The drone for the Bell Advanced Vertical Robotics competition, that is a much larger drone, much heavier. That is a very high end. When you put that thing in hover mode, it's like deadly accurate, for example. That's a drone that it's going to take you 2 hands to carry. It's a much, much larger drone, much heavier, much more advanced. So at the entry level competition, again, it's a smaller hand sized drone. And it's very, very accessible. You can take it out of the box, a couple quick assembly, and you're up and flying it. And it's a lot of fun, really. I encourage everybody that's interested in drones to go to our website. It's an exciting program.
And so, about how many students does it take to make a team for the drone program versus, and then compare that to the robotics program teams?
We have this debate all the time. It's interesting when you talk about on a VEX Robotics team. I think it differs a little bit from elementary school to high school. So this is not an official response, but I think 5 is the right number for our robotics teams, right? So some people want a little bit smaller so that more students do everything, and some schools, some clubs like larger teams, right? So I think 5 is the optimum number. That means you have a couple people focusing on the designing and building, a couple people in the engineering notebook, and then you have drivers. But literally, our program requires it to be a minimum of 2, no max size. But once you get to above 10 students, it's a lot harder to get everybody hands on. And we believe at the REC Foundation, being hands on is really, really important. So our drones program, our aerial drones competition, it's the same thing. A team from 2 to 5 is optimum. But on our Bell program, one of the things I love about that program is there's actually 7 operators. So you have an operator flying the big drone, right? But there's also land vehicles that there's operators. Again, there's a smaller drone that's part of the competition that has another operator. So we have a lot of people involved in other robotics competitions, other STEM competitions that bring their students into the Bell program because it's everybody gets a chance to do something to drive, right? So the minimum number for that would be 7. Probably the optimum size for presentations, the engineering and stuff like that is probably 12 to 15. So
Okay.
again, at the REC Foundation, there's other fantastic robotics competitions out there. We want our team sizes to be a little bit smaller because we really believe the students get the most out of the program when they're hands on. So we want everybody to be able to touch the drone and be hands on.
Right. And so you've mentioned a couple of times the connections between these programs and the workforce, the modern workforce that keeps getting more and more tech heavy, right? Talk to me a little bit about
Yeah.
how the workforce needs and projected needs over the next decade, how that impacts the decisions that you guys make about the competitions and the various programs, and also how you appeal for grant funds from your sponsor companies.
Actually, it's a bit of a foreshadowing because I joined the REC Foundation 6 years ago now, and the focus was on STEM, and our focus still is STEM. I don't want to cloud the picture, but I asked the board when I joined the REC Foundation, I'm like, can we have a focused effort on workforce development? Because the statistics out there show that the tech economy is growing at a huge rate. There's 5 million jobs that are unfilled right now, STEM jobs, because we don't have people to fill those jobs. And the tech rate is growing much faster than the non-tech jobs. So there's a huge need out there. And I felt, me personally felt that most people that were doing robotics were pursuing 4-year degrees. But there's a lot of tech jobs out there that don't require a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree. And I wanted to make sure that the REC Foundation had programs for those. I mean, and let's be honest, technology is touching every single aspect of our life now. It's in our household, commercial, everywhere you go, there's technology. If you go to a retail store now, there's self checkout and there's robots that stock the shelves. And I actually had sushi a couple weeks ago, and my sushi was delivered by a robot, right? So it's really part of everyday part of our lives. And when you drive home, or excuse me, when you're at home, everything's connected to the internet. I mean, I can literally leave work, drive home, set the oven to 350, turn the lights on, and either turn the heat up or turn the AC down, right? Before I ever leave my office. But it takes a workforce to support that, and they don't have to have 4-year degrees. So we have a couple different ways to address this problem because we realize there is a problem in the US and globally. We don't have enough tech workers. So we focused on workforce development, and a couple of our key products and projects out there are our factory automation competition that features the V5 work cell product. And in this program, it includes your class lessons, it includes STEM labs, but students start by building a robot, by building a conveyor system, but at the same time, they're learning key fundamentals of industrial automation and robotics, such as robotic safety. They learn about robot movement, degrees of freedom, XYZ coordinate systems. They learn about end effectors and conveyor systems. And we're not trying to replace the more advanced programs that the robotics companies out there offer or that universities offer. What we're trying to do is giving them a fundamental platform to understand the concepts. So when they graduate from high school, whether they go into college, they go into an apprenticeship program, or they go right into the workforce, they understand the concepts. And the data shows that our program is working. We got a grant through the Department of Defense through the Advanced Robotics and Manufacturing Consortium to develop this program. And pre-assessment, less than half the students were interested in manufacturing job and knew the concepts of degrees of freedom. And then post-assessment, the score was 100% in some of these areas. So what happens is these students now go into the workforce more prepared, and that is a huge bonus. And a lot of times these students will go get an internship. For example, Tesla is one of our biggest partners, and they hire students right out of college, or excuse me, out of high school. So they're recent high school grads, and they're training them to work in their factories. At the same time, they're offering avenues for them to earn certifications, to get 2-year degrees, and ultimately 4 years degrees. And we're helping fulfill that pipeline. The other thing that we really decided to do is invest more in our own industry certification programs. So we have industry certifications in robotics, pre-engineering, and now industrial robotics and automation. We partnered with Society of Manufacturing Engineer for our latest industrial certification. So again, students, some of the students that take these programs go to a traditional 4-year college and earn engineering degrees, but many of these students that are earning these industrial certifications are going right into the workforce and high paying, very secure automation jobs, technology jobs. And again, they can choose to pursue a secondary education. If not, they're going to have a really good, high paying career in the fields that they've done. So we feel workforce development is a core of what we do right now. And that's giving all students from all economic backgrounds an opportunity to get these skills, to get these high paying jobs.
That's amazing. About how many students have gone through the certification program so far?
Oh my goodness, I can't actually answer that question. I rarely get stumped. That's one I don't know. I think we average probably 6 or 7 thousand students a year earn one of our certifications, but I'm going to actually have to research that one, so I don't know the answer. But I think it's about 6 or 7 thousand students a year.
No problem. And then you said the automated manufacturing, I'm saying that wrong, the newer program. How long has that one been around?
Yeah, so we're just announcing right now our industry certification for factory automation robotics. That's again with the Society of Manufacturing Engineer. So no one's taken that assessment test because it's brand new. Our factory automation competition using the V5 work cell, that's been out 2 years now, and there's over 1,000 CTE programs. So that product and that program was designed for high school continuing tech education programs, pre-engineering programs, and then also two-year colleges. And so we've had over 1,000 schools use this program. Not all the schools have participated in the competition, but most have. The beautiful thing about this program is it's classroom oriented. So, a classroom of 20 or 30 students will do their activities. The work cells themselves are not that expensive, so it can be 2 or 3 students working on a work cell at a time, and then they can all compete in the competition. So last year was our first full year after a couple pilot years, and we've had a lot of communication this fall from teachers saying, "Hey, can we get a even more challenging competition? Can you even add more?" So working closely with VEX Robotics, we actually have additional STEM challenges for this, additional STEM labs, and additional curriculum that students can now build, for example, linear rails and some additional type of stuff. So again, both of these programs, the CTE programs in high schools and the two-year colleges love this because it's really giving these students these base skills. It makes them very, very attractive in the workforce.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. There's one more thing I want to ask you about that I am not familiar with. VEX Worlds. Let's talk about that. What is VEX Worlds?
Well, the VEX Robotics World Championship is the largest robotics competition in the world. Guinness is certified at 3 different times now, and it's truly an incredible event. So VEX Worlds is the culmination of our season. So through our structure, teams start competing at small local events, then they go to larger events, regional events. In our program, the peak of the season is either your regional, your state, or your national championship. That's what I encourage teams to be striving for. But 3,000 lucky teams from across our programs will qualify for VEX Worlds. And so if you do the math, it's less than 10% of the teams that compete in VEX Robotics will actually make it to VEX Worlds. So at VEX Worlds, it's 10 days. In 2023, it'll be held in Dallas, Texas. We do rotate cities every 4 or 5 years that host VEX Worlds, but in 2023, it'll be in Dallas. It's over 10 days. Over 30,000 students will come to Dallas for the competition. We'll have over 100,000 spectators over the course of the 10 days. And not only will they compete with the best robots from across the globe, they'll make lots of friends. We have lots of activities for them to do. All of our sponsors set up exhibits. But more importantly, it's about making new relationships. It's about seeing how teams do robotics in different parts of the country or the world. I always like to joke that there's always communication challenges, right? So a team from China competing with a team from the U.S. or a team from Spain competing with a team with France. I mean, you have those natural language barriers, but we always overcome those with the language of robotics. But sometimes the communication challenges are even within the U.S. I mean, we have some regions of this country where we have some pretty thick accents. So it's interesting when a team from the New England area meets a team from southern Louisiana or southern Alabama for the first time. It's not that much different when a team from China meets a team from California for the first time. So, but it's everybody that goes to VEX World says it's a life changing experience. It actually puts a lot of pressure on the REC Foundation to keep up that high standard. But it's really the culminating event of what we do, and it's got the lasers and the fireworks and the fancy 3D screens and stuff like that. So it's really a great event, and we're glad that we're able to put on such a unique event for our community.
That sounds pretty amazing. One of these days, I'm going to make it to one of those events.
Absolutely, Crystal. Let me know. I'll get you on the guest list. So
That sounds great. Dallas is not too far of a hop, skip, and jump from me. Thank you so much for telling us about your programs. I'm fascinated by the robotics. I think it's fantastic that you guys are incorporating the drone technology, and I think a lot of educators are probably really glad that the the REC Foundation exists, and that you guys put on these great events and provide this hands-on curriculum for the kids. And so thank you for all you do and for your time today. If you listeners, if you want more information, go to roboticseducation.org. Thank you for being with us today on THE Journal Insider Podcast. You can find links to resources and products discussed in this episode at thejournal.com, as well as lots of K-12 technology news, insights, grant opportunities, upcoming events, and much more. I'm Crystal Kirkendall, editor at THE Journal. You can stream our podcast episodes on our website or find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. We'd love to hear feedback and future episode suggestions from K-12 educators and IT practitioners alike. You can email me through our website or send us a tweet and follow us on Twitter at THE_journal is our username on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, make today a great day.